as we go through this next section, this is the exciting section, the section where we look out for the next 50 years and three big trends that I see shaping the Internet of Things and the connections around us. I start to really wonder, what if this world does transpire the way that I'm going to talk about? We're headed towards the Internet of everything, every single kind of ecosystem, and it's going to be certainly very interesting. Okay, the first one's around energy. I talk a lot about renewable energy. I talk about something called supergrids. It's the idea that we can have fully interconnected energy between countries with energy traded in real time. Now, by 2050, 86% of the world's energy could be generated by renewable energy sources. This is fantastic. We've got ourselves into a bit of a troubled time with fossil fuels and burning that CO2 in the atmosphere. And the industrial revolutions that have pushed us forward have cost us so much in terms of climate change. Now, we're not going to be able to cool down the planet, but we're going to be able to make better decisions around energy. But the idea of supergrids is that we can build renewable energy resources and then we can interconnect them into an internet of energy. Now, we can do this on a small scale. This is a development, an experimental development in Holland called the Aardehuizen. And these are Earth ships, are fantastic technologies, incredibly energy efficient. They grow their own vegetables and food. They capture water and distribute that amongst this micro village. And they also generate their own energy. They store it in batteries and they distribute that for free. Off-grid is going to be a huge trend in the next 50 years, even in urban situations. When we start getting to things like solar roofs and solar in our cottages up north and whatever, we're just not going to be beholden to the utilities anymore. And it's going to change the nature of their businesses too. We're going to be generating energy for those people, and we're ultimately going to be making money, which is incredibly attractive to us. But the world that we're really heading towards is this. By about the world 2060, 2050, we're going to be seeing an entire global internet of energy. This is the big idea around supergrids. Imagine if we're generating energy on the plains of Mongolia, in Australia, in Africa, North America, South America, Europe, interconnected, always on energy, incredibly cheap, traded in real time. Then we change the geopolitical dynamics of the world. I think that China is getting a huge leap ahead on this. Australia has got some really interesting developments as well. And this kind of technology is really starting to make us think about, okay, how can we push our interconnection and convenience around energy forward? What comes with that are all of the security concerns. There's a number of ex-deputy directors of the NSA sort of starting to wave flags and saying that there's hundreds of vulnerabilities within sort of even US infrastructure that we have to patch up. The trouble with legacy infrastructure we have surrounding us right now is that there's potential vulnerabilities. So the energy industry is going to get on top of all of that, secure it all down, put new technology in, utilize things like 5G for communications and other technologies for the interconnection between countries. And I think that this is going to be a huge trend going forward. The second trend that I'm super excited about, and this sort of plays to my inner nerd, is around automation and robotics. In the 1990s, I was programming artificial intelligence systems around neural networks and grammar checkers and doing some very sort of deep philosophical research of whether grammar truly existed or not. But today, automation is in the majority of our systems. You've touched artificial intelligence several times today already, especially if you've checked Gmail or Facebook or anything like that. This is the evolution of the human state. It's a new world. So many different applications of robotics are out there that we can really start to get excited, but we can also start to think and wonder what happens when that starts to impact society. Here's a short video to take you through some of those developments. And what's fascinating about that last one there with that drone ship is that wasn't real. That was CGI. But here's an image from the patent that was awarded to Amazon to actually deploy that kind of technology. In the next 15 to 20 years, are we going to see large cities like New York and Toronto with these kind of ships over and above it? Yeah, absolutely. And that's slightly worrying if you ask me. Okay, let's go from robotics, and that's a huge area. I've done entire presentations just on them for like 3 or 4 hours and worked with clients and tried to unlock the potential of automation. It's going to be the thing that changes our world, and they think it's going to be worth about $17 trillion to the global economy to have this new ecosystem of human and the machine. But now we have to stare new realities into the face. What I try to think about is how we're going to move from looking at the rectangles in our pockets and on our sideboards into the hyper reality of the modern world. We're going to have glasses like this. This is the Magic Leap 1, and I've had friends use this during the pandemic to recreate being in the office with people. I mean, these are people that work in high-tech companies down in Silicon Valley. Now, these people can actually walk around each other. It's raw, it's visceral, it's emotional. It's like being in the room with someone that already exists. Now, I'm going to show you a short clip of a video by a designer out of the UK called Keiichi Matsuda. He imagines a world called hyperreality, where we're surrounded by advertisers and people that gamify our environments, taking advantage of us wearing these kinds of devices.
Estoy libre de mi ira. Estoy libre de mi tristeza. Y el amor es mi experiencia.
Habla español.
Adiós.
Olá, eu sou Maria.
Bueno. Hola otra vez. Ay no, cállate.
Go and search Matsuda Hyperreality. It's a 12-minute video. It's a speculative future about how our world could be when we've got advertisers running wild in there. And now we've got companies like Facebook starting to think about bringing this to life. Now, they launched Project Aria just last week. They're going to send hundreds of their employees out into the world to test this technology. I actually think in the next 5 years, it's going to be pretty commonplace. And the idea is that in the next 15 years or so, we're not going to have cell phones and smartphones. We're going to be wearing glasses with these overlays of the world and useful information, also advertising information being directly fed to us in the environments where we live and also in the environments where we work and walk around. Okay, the last and third piece of technological advancement that I like to talk about, and it's really worth knowing about, is around quantum computing and the idea of quantum supremacy. Using technologies like quantum computers that have got qubits that can be 1 and 0 and 1 and 0 at the same time means that you can use quantum effects like entanglement and superposition to completely break any form of encryption immediately. You can also use that power to revolutionize nanotechnology design, materials technology, chemical technology as well. And these computers are very difficult to run. They have to run very, very cold, into the Kelvin range of cold. People like IBM and D-Wave out of Vancouver were a very early starter. And IBM are even saying that within a couple of years, they're going to have a 1,000 qubit machine. And this is really the beginning of a journey onto super processing of information. Now, we've got supercomputers that are incredibly large, football field size computers that are using traditional computing to do very difficult calculations. Quantum computing completely changes it and instantaneously promises to do calculations in split seconds. So this is an area that, whilst it won't have an immediate effect on things per se, it will have an effect on the security of those things around us. And people like banks and telecommunications providers and communications providers are really starting to look at photonic level security, where you can use randomized photons in a quantum computer to be able to set different boundaries and forever changing randomized numbers so that you don't actually break encryption. And this brings us back to talk a little bit more about infinite humanity, going back to the idea of communications, of energy, of transportation, of biology, of the things that surround us that are capturing information from all of those things in an industrial context, a home context, and in an office context as well. But what is really certain to me is that we have to come back to who we are as humans. When we choose to be part of this world, we have to recognize that we're built on these 6 traits: certainty, variety, connection, significant growth, and contribution. I'd like to hope that there are more designers within these large tech companies that take it into consideration, that do protect us and do take care. But what we have to do is we have to protect these, because this is how we're going to operate for thousands of years into the future. And we have to create a society that's aware of the risks around us to our security and our privacy and how the world works. And I like to go back to George Orwell, who wrote 1984. Big Brother is watching us, and he sure is these days. But I like to call it the Big Sisters. It's every single tech company out there that's got a device that's connected to the internet, that's in your office, in your home, and on the streets, that we need to be aware of. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. So be careful about who you give your information to and how you operate in this world. And that's it. We've looked at how we are today, how the Internet of Things is changing how we operate in society. But don't forget to think about that second part. Think about, what if the world does change? What if it gets bigger and more powerful? Think of the fantastic opportunities for business, the fantastic opportunities for creating amazing customer service, an incredible home environment for our families. But also ask, what if that world changes and creates a greater level of risk to our own privacy and security as well?